Your car insurance comes due $180, but you don't have $180 right now. You have $80, so you can't pay the full amount. Instead, you pay $60 to keep it active for 2 weeks, knowing you'll have to pay another $120 later to catch up, plus a $25 late fee. That's $185 total instead of $180. You just paid extra to be broke. Your electricity bill is $95, but you only pay $40 because that's what you can afford. Next month, it's $150 plus a $15 reconnection fee because they cut you off. You're paying $165 for electricity that should have cost $95. You need new work shoes. The good ones are $80 and will last 2 years. But you don't have $80, so you buy the $25 ones from Walmart. They fall apart in 4 months. Over 2 years, you buy 6 pairs at $25 each. That's $150 for shoes that should have cost $80. You're paying double for everything. And the crazy part is, you're not bad with money. You're not irresponsible. You're just broke. And being broke is expensive as hell. My name is Gorilla Bob, and I spend way too much time thinking about why being poor costs so much more than being comfortable, and how the entire financial system is designed to extract maximum dollars from people who can least afford it. If you're someone who's constantly paying fees, penalties, and interest charges that people with money never have to pay, or if you're working your ass off but somehow falling further behind instead of getting ahead, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to break down the actual math of being broke, not the moral judgments, not the just stop buying lattes advice, the real calculated ways that being broke forces you to pay double, triple, sometimes 5 times more for the exact same goods and services that wealthy people get at a discount. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how the poverty tax works, how much it's costing you, and what you can actually do about it. Here's the thing, there's an invisible tax on being poor that most people never calculate. It's not an official tax, the government didn't pass it, but it's more expensive than income tax for people at the bottom, and it costs you thousands of dollars every year. According to the Urban Institute's 2023 study, low-income households pay an average of $1,290 per year in fees and interest that higher-income households never pay. And that's just the direct, measurable costs. When you factor in the indirect costs, the expensive substitutes, the opportunity costs, the efficiency losses, we're talking about 10 to 15% of annual income just evaporating into the poverty tax. Here's how it works with real numbers. Let's start with something basic, banking. If you have money, banking is basically free. You have a checking account with a $1,500 minimum balance, so you pay 0 monthly fees. You get overdraft protection. You earn a tiny bit of interest. Banking costs you nothing. But if you're broke, banking costs you constantly. You don't have $1,500 to maintain a minimum balance, so you pay a $12 monthly maintenance fee. That's $144 a year just to have a checking account. You overdraft twice because your paycheck didn't clear before your rent check did. That's $70 in overdraft fees. You use an out-of-network ATM 6 times because you needed cash and the nearest in-network one was 3 miles away. That's $18 in ATM fees. Total annual banking tax, $232 per year just to access your own money. According to the FDIC's 2023 survey, 5.9 million U.S. households are unbanked, and another 18.7 million are underbanked. These people pay an estimated $1,500 to $2,000 per year in check cashing fees, money order fees, and other financial service fees that people with bank accounts never touch. Here's what most people don't realize. You're paying $232 for a service that costs wealthy people $0. That's $232 that could have been saved, invested, used for an emergency, but it's gone, extracted by the financial system as a tax on being broke. Now let's talk about credit. This is where the math gets really brutal. You need a $5,000 car to get to work. Someone with good credit gets a 6% interest rate on a 5-year auto loan. Their monthly payment is $96.66. Total paid over 5 years, $5,799. They paid $799 in interest. You have bad credit because you missed some payments when you were between jobs. Your interest rate is 18%. Your monthly payment is $126.94. Total paid over 5 years, $7,616. You paid $2,616 in interest. Same car, you paid $1,817 more than the person with good credit. Not because you're less responsible, not because the car is worth more to you, because you're broke. But it gets worse. That higher monthly payment, $126.94 versus $96.66, means an extra $30 a month you can't save. Over 5 years, if that $30 was invested at 7% average returns, it would be $2,160. So the real cost of bad credit isn't just $1,817 in extra interest, plus $2,160 in lost investment opportunity. You're $3,977 poorer than the person with good credit for the exact same car. This is where it gets really interesting. According to Experian, people with credit scores below 600 pay an average of 10 to 15 percentage points higher interest on auto loans, personal loans, and credit cards. On a $20,000 auto loan, that's the difference between $3,200 in interest, 6% rate, and $10,500 in interest, 18% rate. That's $7,300 extra just for being broke. And credit cards? If you have good credit, you might have a card with 15% APR and no annual fee. If you have bad credit, you're looking at 29.99 APR plus a $99 annual fee. If you carry a $2,000 balance because you had an emergency and had no other options, you're paying $600 in interest annually instead of $300, plus the $99. That's $399 extra on the same $2,000.
Look, insurance is one of the most obvious poverty taxes, and almost no one talks about it. Car insurance. If you can afford to pay the full 6-month premium up front, you get a discount. Let's say it's $540 for 6 months if you pay in full, but you can't afford $540 at once, so you pay monthly. The monthly payment is $95 a month, which is $570 for 6 months. You just paid $30 extra because you couldn't afford to pay up front. Now, you might be thinking, Bob, $30 isn't that much. Over 10 years, that's $600. But let's keep going. You don't have great credit, so your insurance is higher to begin with. The person with good credit pays $540 for 6 months. You pay $780 for 6 months because of your credit score, even though you've never had an accident. That's an extra $240 every 6 months, or $480 per year. Combined with the monthly payment penalty, you're paying $510 more per year for the exact same insurance coverage. Over 10 years of driving, that's $5,100 extra. That's a used car. You paid an extra used car worth of money just because you were broke. And here's the kicker. You probably have higher deductibles too, because lower deductibles mean higher premiums you can't afford. So when you do have an accident, you're paying more out of pocket as well. Here's where the poverty tax gets psychological, and this is what really makes me angry. When you're broke, you can't afford to buy quality. You have to buy what you can afford right now. And what you can afford right now is usually cheap garbage that costs more in the long run. Let's do the math on everyday items. Work boots. Quality boots are $120. They last 3 years. Cheap boots are $35. They last 6 months. Over 3 years, it's $120 versus $110 buying 6 pairs. Poverty tax, $90. Kitchen knife. Good knife is $40, lasts 10 years with basic care. Cheap knife is $8, breaks or dulls unusable in 18 months. Over 10 years, it's $40 versus $64 buying 8 times. Poverty tax, $24. Winter coat. Quality coat is $150, lasts 5+ years. Cheap coat is $40, lasts 1 year. Over 5 years, it's $150 versus $200. Poverty tax, $50. These seem like small amounts individually, but when you apply this principle across your entire life, shoes, clothes, appliances, tools, furniture, you're paying thousands extra per year. Let me tell you about someone I know. She was working retail, barely making ends meet. She needed a vacuum cleaner. The good one was $200. She couldn't afford $200, so she bought the $40 one from Walmart. It broke in 8 months. She bought another $40 one. It broke in 7 months. Over 3 years, she bought 5 $40 vacuums. That's $200 for vacuums that didn't even last as long as the $200 one would have. But here's what makes this a real trap. She knew the expensive one was better. She knew she was making the economically wrong choice. But when you have $50 in your account and you need a vacuum, you buy the $40 vacuum. You don't have the option to make the smart long-term choice. This is called the Sam Vine's boots theory of economic unfairness, named after a character in a Terry Pratchett novel who explains that a really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two, cost about $10. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while a poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Here's what most people don't realize. Being broke doesn't just cost you money, it costs you time. And time is the one resource you can never get back. When you're broke, you spend hours every week on tasks that people with money never have to do. Driving to multiple stores to catch different sales, 3 hours per week. Dealing with bill collectors and payment plans, 2 hours per week. Taking the bus because your car broke down and you can't afford to fix it, 5 extra hours per week versus driving. Cooking everything from scratch because you can't afford convenience, 7 hours per week versus meal prep or occasional takeout. Doing your own car maintenance, home repairs, and other DIY to save money, 4 hours per week. That's 21 hours per week just managing being broke. Now here's the brutal math. If you used those 21 hours per week to earn extra income at even $15 an hour, that's $315 per week or $16,380 per year. But you can't because those hours are consumed by the maintenance work of poverty. This is the time tax, and it's the most insidious part of the poverty trap because it prevents you from doing the things that could actually get you out of being broke. Let's talk about food, because this is where the poverty tax becomes really visible if you know where to look. Healthy food is more expensive per calorie than unhealthy food. According to a 2023 study published in the Journal of the Academy of Dietetics, a healthy diet costs about $1.50 more per day than an unhealthy one. That's $547.50 per year per person. But it's worse than that, because when you're broke, you often don't have access to healthy food at all. You live in a food desert. The nearest grocery store with fresh produce is 8 miles and you don't have a car. Your local options are a convenience store and a fast food place. You're paying convenience store prices, often 30 to 50% markup, for lower quality food. A gallon of milk at the grocery store is $3.79. Same gallon at the convenience store is $5.59. Poverty tax $1.70 per gallon. You buy milk twice a week. That's $176.80 extra per year just on milk. But wait, there's more. You can't afford to buy in bulk because you don't have A, the money to buy the 24-pack, B, the transportation to get it home, C, the storage space in your small apartment. So you buy the single items at the convenience store, paying 2 to 3 times more per unit. 12-pack of toilet paper at Costco is 83 cents per roll. 4-pack at the convenience store is $1.75 per roll. Poverty tax 92 cents per roll. If you use 1 roll per week for a household, that's $47.84 extra per year just on toilet paper. This pattern repeats across every household item. According to a 2022 study by the Economic Policy Institute, low-income households pay an estimated 15 to 20% more for groceries and household goods due to food deserts, lack of transportation, and inability to buy in bulk. For a household spending $5,000 annually on groceries and household items, that's $750 to $1,000 in poverty tax.
Whew. We need to talk about payday loans because this might be the most predatory poverty tax of all. You need $300 to pay rent or your car payment. You don't have it. You won't get paid until next Friday. What do? You go to a payday lender. They'll give you $300 and you pay them back $345 in 2 weeks. That's $45 in fees for a $300 2-week loan. Okay, you think, that's not that bad. $45 to avoid eviction or repossession. But here's the math. $45 on a $300 loan for 2 weeks is 15% interest for 2 weeks. Annualized, that's 391% APR. And it gets worse because most people can't pay back the loan in 2 weeks, so they roll it over. Now it's $345 plus another $45 fee, $390 total for the original $300. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the average payday loan borrower takes out 10 loans per year and spends 200 days in debt. If each loan is $300 and costs $45 in fees, that's $450 in fees per year to borrow $300. That's literally paying 150% of the loan amount over the course of a year. Now you might be thinking, but Bob, if it's that bad, why do people do it? Because when you're broke and you need $300 to keep your lights on or your car from being repossessed, 391% APR doesn't matter. You need $300 today. The consequences are for future you to deal with. This is the psychological trap of poverty. You're making decisions based on immediate survival, not long-term optimization, and the financial system knows this and profits from it massively. All right, let's add this all up for one person over 1 year. Banking fees, $232. Extra interest from bad credit, car loan, $1,817. Insurance poverty tax, $510. Buying cheap items that break, $500, conservative estimate. Time tax, opportunity cost, $8,000, half of the 21-hour per week calculation. Food poverty tax, $875. Payday loan fees, $450. Total annual poverty tax, $12,384. If you're making $35,000 a year, you're losing 35% of your income just to the poverty tax. You're paying $12,384 extra per year for the privilege of being broke. But here's where it gets really depressing. That $12,384, if you could have saved and invested it at 7% average returns, would be worth $246,000 in 20 years. $250,000 gone, extracted by the poverty tax. Here's the thing that really makes me frustrated. People look at broke people and think they're making bad decisions. And sometimes, yes, the decisions look bad from the outside. But when you understand the constraints, most of the time, broke people are making perfectly rational decisions given their circumstances. You buy the cheap boots because you have $35 today and you need boots tomorrow to go to work. You're not being short-sighted, you're being realistic about your immediate needs. You take the payday loan because the alternative is eviction or repossession, which costs way more than $45 in fees. You're not being irresponsible, you're choosing the least bad option among all bad options. You pay monthly for insurance instead of upfront because you need food and rent money this month. You're not bad at planning, you're triaging. The poverty trap works because every decision you make to survive today makes it harder to get ahead tomorrow. You're not stupid. The system is designed to keep you exactly where you are. Look, I'm not going to give you some bullshit advice like just make more money or stop being poor. Here are actual concrete steps you can take right now. Step 1. Calculate your personal poverty tax. Go through last year's bank statements and add up over